welcome everyone to today's session, which is about negative sentences. We're going to look at how to create negative sentences using sometimes negative verbs and sometimes negative words. So let's have a look at my first slide. To change the idea of a sentence from positive to negative, we usually change the verb into its negative form by adding not to the auxiliary verb. For example, she lives in Mexico. The negative sentence would be she does not live in Mexico. But there are cases where we can or must use a negative word instead of a negative verb. And today we're going to look at some of these cases. Starting with the word some. If your positive sentence includes the word some, you have a choice on how to create a negative sentence. For example, if we have, I have some relatives in Mexico, your first option is to make your verb have negative, I do not have, and then some changes to any relatives in Mexico. Or your option B is to use a negative word, which is no. I have, positive verb, no, negative word, relatives in Mexico. Now, a few other things to say about some and any before we move on. The first thing is that if you hear or see any in a positive sentence, it has a completely different meaning. It means it doesn't matter who or what. For example, you can ask any staff member for help. So a positive verb can, and just the word any. In this context, any means whoever, whichever member of staff. Or I could pick any color I wanted. Again, any here means it didn't matter which color. Next point is that everything we have said so far about some, any, and no also applies to words that include these words in them. For example, someone, somebody, something, somewhere, anyone, anybody, anything, anywhere, or no one, nobody, nothing, nowhere. For example, did you see something or anything? In the question, we can use some or any. No, I didn't see anything, negative verb, or I saw nothing, negative word. Or the other meaning of any, anyone or anybody can solve this maths problem. Now, I would like to just mention the very common mistakes that I hear, so hopefully you will be able to avoid them. The common mistakes are either creating half a negative with any, so using any with a positive verb and saying things like, I have any relatives in Mexico. This can be very confusing. We don't know if you are saying that you do have or you do not have relatives in Mexico. Or sometimes going the other way and creating 1.5 or 2 negatives. For example, saying things like, I have no any, or I do not have no. Avoid combining these expressions or negatives with each other. It's either I do not have any or I have no relatives in Mexico. So that brings us to the next word, still. Again, if your positive sentence includes the word still, you have a choice on how to create a negative sentence. For example, she still cycles to work. Option A, she does not, so negative verb, cycle to work anymore. So we can't use still in the negative sentence here. Or negative word, negative expression, she no longer cycles to work. Now, a very important thing that you need to know is that you may sometimes use still in a negative sentence, but this expresses something a little different. This expresses that a negative situation continues. A negative situation in the past continues into the present. But be very careful that in this case, still goes before the negative auxiliary verb. For example, she didn't have a car last year, and she still does not have a car. Right. We can now move on to the word already. Once again, if your positive sentence includes this word, already, you have this time 3 options on how to make it negative. So, example, he has already been to China. Option 1, he has not been to China yet. So negative verb with yet. And you can put yet in the middle of the sentence immediately after not. You can also say he has not yet been to China. Option 2, he has not ever been to China. So using the word ever with a negative verb, he has not ever been to China, or using a negative word. He has, positive verb, he has never been to China. One little point that you will need to remember is that you must avoid using ever in a positive sentence. Ever can only be used in a question or a negative sentence. So in the question, we have a lot more flexibility. You can say, has she ever been to India? Has she already been to India? You can even use yet. Has she been to India yet? But if you answer positively, yes, she has, you can only use already. Yes, she has already been to India. Don't use ever here. Right. We can now look at the words much and many. We often use much and many instead of a lot of in negative sentences, but we can also use the words little and few, which have negative connotation. For example, is there a lot of traffic? No, there isn't. There is not much traffic. So negative verb with much, but we can also keep the verb positive, there is, and then use little or very little. There is very little traffic. Are there a lot of vehicles? No, there are not many vehicles. There are few or very few vehicles. Now, I'd like to say a word about this word very. Although using very before these negative words, little and few, is not obligatory, I personally prefer to use it to clearly distinguish these negative words from the positive expressions a little and a few. Compare how similar they sound without very. There are few vehicles, almost zero, almost none. There are a few vehicles. Now, with that little sound, we mean there are some vehicles. The meaning has totally changed. That's why I like to add very before these two little words. Okay. Now we're going to come to a group of words, none, either, neither. They're a little bit more complicated for the reason that if your positive sentence includes these words, for example, all and both, the idea changes depending on whether you use a negative word or a negative verb. So you have to be very careful here. Let's look at some examples. For example, have you met all the guests? If you make your verb negative and say, no, I have not met all of them, what you mean is that you have only met some of them. Not all of them, but some of them. Whereas if you use the negative word none and say, no, I have met none of them, now the meaning has changed to I have not met any of them. So zero. Example with both. Did you watch both movies? No, I did not watch both of them. This means I only watched one of them. Whereas if you use the negative word neither, the meaning changes. No, I watched neither of them means I did not watch this one or that one. I did not watch either of them. Continuing with the same group of words, we also have compound phrases, both and, neither nor, either or. Let's look at these. Example, did you buy both a phone and a tablet? Now, if you say, no, I did not buy both of them, you mean I only bought one of them. So negative verb with both means I only bought one. If you now say, I did not buy either a phone or a tablet, it means you bought nothing. So in this case, you can also use the negative compound phrase, neither nor. I bought neither a phone nor a tablet. So, still staying with this group of words, we also sometimes use these to say that the same statement we've just heard applies to us as well. Now, if the statement we've heard is positive, we use words to and so. For example, I have met all the guests. Reaction, me too. I have too. So have I. But if the statement we've just heard is negative, then we cannot use to or so. We have to use neither, either, nor. For example, I have not met any of the guests. I have met none of the guests. Now we have to react by saying me neither, or I have not either, or neither have I, nor have I. So remember these. And to finish, I'd like to mention a very important point, and that is, if positive words like both and all, everyone, everything are in the subject position of your sentence, we cannot use a negative verb. We will confuse our listener. We must either use a negative word or put the word not directly before the subject. And once again, each option expresses a different idea. So let's look at 3 examples to make this absolutely clear for you. First example is with both. Were both Harry and Bill late? Avoid saying, no, both of them were not late. This is confusing. We don't know what you mean. You can either say, no, neither of them were late. That means they were both on time. Or say, no, not both of them were late. Only Harry was late. So these are your 2 options to answer this question with 2 very different meanings. Let's look at 2 more examples. With all, for example, did all of you agree with him? Avoid saying, no, all of us didn't agree with him. We don't know what you mean. 2 possibilities. No, none of us agreed with him, which means we all disagreed with him. Or, no, not all of us agreed with him, means only some of us did. And the final example with everyone. Has everyone left? Avoid saying, no, everyone has not left. Your 2 possibilities are, no, no one has left, means we're all still here. Or, no, not everyone has left. Some of us are still here. Right, that's the end of this review lesson on negative words. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. For more on this topic, click here. Remember to also check out my complete online course, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and happy studies!